right now.
Alrighty. I think we can probably get started. Can everyone hear me pretty well? So for those of you who don't know, my name is Jonathan Bruns. I was like the chair of this council for in November. And so this is kind of the first time that I have like public speaking in a while. So please give me some grace, as I work through it. So thank you. We'll introduce the vision and the mission of this. Should I do that? Mm-hmm. Okay, fine. Thank you. Sounds really loud, but the mission of this council is to strengthen the community by educating, engaging, and uniting residents through inclusive dialogue and programs that improve the quality of life in the neighborhood and broader community. We vision a Capitol Hill where all people feel a sense of value and belonging and are empowered to contribute to the civic life and the well-being of the community. Those are from our bylaws, which have been recently updated. So you know me, and I want to give you an opportunity to meet on paper Jake Seastrand, who will be the chair-elect. He unfortunately talked to me earlier today. He is down with cold, doesn't want to spread it to everyone, so he will be attending later this year. He'll get to meet him, I promise. Scott Poli is also not here, but he has been here quite a lot as our communications guy. Does a lot of our emails and all that stuff. He's transitioning into treasurer this year. Sam Adams was the treasurer last year. Almighty, awesome. And now will be the recording secretary this year. And Metcalf also told me that she was not going to be here. Pretty interesting happenings all today, but it happens. And she'll be the corresponding secretary for this year, try to coordinate official business and get people the information they need in the best way possible. We also have interns, which I don't know if I'm going to be able to recall all of your names right now, but can you introduce each other?
I'm Sandeep Silakola, and I'm an intern.
Maybe what you're doing.
Yeah. So I am on the community engagement and then also the communications board as an intern. And those are the two functions that I have, and I go to the University of Utah.
Hi everyone, my name is Autumn Mead. I'm on the Transportation Infrastructure and Planning Committee, as well as the Environment and Events Committee, and I'm really happy to be here, and I'm also a student at the university.
Hi, I'm Emma Hadlock. I'm also a student at the University of Utah, all of us are, and I am on the Communications, Governance, and also the Community Engagement Committee.
Hello, my name is Achol. I'm on the Finance and Governance Board and also a student at the university.
Hi, I'm Mason McCann. I'm on the comms, finance, and events boards. And I also am a student at the University of Utah. Go Utes!
You want to talk a little bit about how you get that?
Yes. So I'm Janine Luck, and I am the site supervisor for our 5 new interns that we have this semester. They are helping Capitol Hill Neighborhood Council with our committees to help our committees get up and running. They can dedicate anywhere from 6.5 to 10 hours a week of their time. They're full-time students. This is a program through AmeriCorps or UServe, the University of Utah, particularly the Hinckley Institute of Politics. And if you work for a nonprofit, you can apply for your organization to receive interns, to be a hosting site for interns. And you can hire just one or a couple, or like us, so we went with 5. We're really excited. Each of them are going to help us with a different, with a specific project. Especially on our comms team. And then they're also going to be doing things like community outreach when we're asked to partner with another organization, such as the Utah Film Center, and we get to have a table, or if there's another place where we can let people know about the Capitol Hill Neighborhood Council, that our interns will be helping to be ambassadors of our council. We want more and more of our neighbors to know that our organization exists, and that this is a great way to get involved in our neighborhood and know what's going on and bring more ideas and improve our neighborhood and create what we want this neighborhood to be. So super grateful for our interns. If you have a 501c3 and need an intern, the coolest thing is that they're being paid hourly, but it's not by the nonprofit. So it's by UServe and the University of Utah. So it's a really great opportunity for everyone. Yep. Okay. And then did you want to say anything about committees or later? Okay. Yep, so we have an announcement from our community partner, the Utah Film Center, partnered with us last year and is partnering with us again. We were able to have a few film screenings last year. At the beginning of last year, we had a film screening at the Capitol, Won't You Be My Neighbor, the documentary about Mr. Rogers. And then towards the end of the year, we had 2 family film screenings at the Utah Film Center, because they have their awesome black box theater right there off of 4th West and 4th North. So every month, if you go to their website, you will see that there are various films that you can sign up to register to see for free. And the one that we're partnering is the monthly family film, which in February is an animated film on Frida Kahlo. Yeah, so can you click on
I was just going to show you what it looks like in case you want to see.
Website for Utah Film Center. They're such a great community asset. We're going to be talking about community assets later on today, and they are such a great asset. We're so glad that they're right in our neighborhood. So they will partner with us once a month for the family film screening. And you can just go on, reserve a ticket for free, because it's kind of first come, first serve. Likely some of us from the Capitol Hill Neighborhood Council Board or our interns will also be at those film screenings. It's usually on a Saturday morning, the family film one. Yep.
All right, and then I will kind of introduce our committee chairs. So we have like the board, it has officers, which we've kind of introduced. They help organize things. And then committees are kind of the liaison between the rest of the neighborhood. So in order to like help and organize and do that, we've committed created committees to try to focus our energies into ways that can most impact things, both locally here and abroad. So Janine, who you just spoke or heard from, she is the Finance Development Committee Chair. Sam Adams, who you also heard from earlier, is the Governance Committee Chair. And at Cal Office Communications, Christine Lutz is not here. But community engagement, Annie, what's your last name? Trujillo. All right. Is going to be community chair of events. James Wright is environment. Is James here? No. And then Samuel too will be our transportation, infrastructure and planning. Excuse me. It used to be traffic. It's not. Yeah, we want less traffic, more transportation. And so now we're gonna go to the financial report for December, which is.
I am not the treasurer. This is a brief reprise,
Don't ask me.
but our treasurer is not here. So, to finish out the year, we brought in what rounds to 100% of our targeted revenue for the year. So that's nice. Not quite in the buckets we budgeted for, but I won't complain about that. And then we only spent about 90% of what we budgeted for the year last year. So we ended up with a just over $2,800 surplus for 2025. So there you are. We're trying to be good stewards of the community resources that we've been given. So yeah, we have a cash balance currently of just over 15,000 and net assets just under 16,000. You can find a full financial report there, or there's extra copies over by the other meeting resources. And then the one last thing to just make y'all aware of is that we do have our initial budget for the year established. And there are copies of that over there also online, that QR code, which allocates $9,100 in revenue is the current target, and then just under that in expenses for the year across communications, community engagement, public safety, and general administrative incidental expenses, whatnot. Yes, are there any questions about financial report or anything else from you, because I'm not the treasurer? Great, thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much. And then we'll be kind of continuing on with like the local updates from our local leaders. And I think Chris Wharton is first.
All right, good to see everybody. How's it going? Happy New Year. So I just wanted to talk with you a little bit about what the council did in December and what you can expect for this year, which has already been a lot of surprises. So in December, the council passed the Ballpark Next plan. So that's what's going to happen with the Smith's Ballpark now that the fees are gone. And that should be really exciting. So you'll see lots of developments coming forward on that. We passed some changes to residential multifamily zoning for 35-45 areas. So that's like an example of that would be the building next door, the Harvest. Not really any big changes for this area because it already was allowed, so no change there. And then we passed the annual water conservation plan, and we received an update on the public safety plan, which was rolled out at the end of around this time last year. And that shows that crime in every area of the city is down, which is really exciting, and it's a low in about the last 15 years. This one unpleasant indicator, but I wanted to make sure and point out to you, because if you go, you can see all these crime stats on the Salt Lake City Police Department website. But some people have pointed out that there were more rapes reported. The police believe that is actually because the other crimes are down, and they've been doing more outreach, and so they don't believe that more rapes are occurring, but that they're being reported at higher rates because of the outreach work that the city is doing with our the co-responders, which are social workers, and then that we cross-check that data with like the Rate Recovery Center and other resources, and that's tracking the same. So I guess, yeah, that's why that one number kind of jumped out to people. And then, preview for 2026. So we have a new council member on the council, which is, Councilmember Erica Christensen, Erica Carlson. She's representing, District 5, so that's Liberty Wells, 9th and 9th area, Ballpark, replacing, Councilmember Garamano, who was on the council up until January. That we elected new leadership for the council for the year. So Councilmember Poi will be the council chair this year. He represents District 2, which is Poplar Grove and Glendale. And then we elected Erica, threw her right into the fire as vice chair. And then for the CRA, the Community Reinvestment Agency, we have Dan Dugan from District 6, that's Foothills area, and the vice chair of the Community Redevelopment Agency is Ada Lopez, represents downtown. So, and I'm happy to take a year off of leadership, having served as chair last year, just kind of focus on some district issues this year. One of the big things that we're going to be working on is trying to avoid a property tax increase. In order to do that, we have to either cut or find alternative funding for about $40 million, which is very difficult to do. And the question that we get asked a lot is, how can it be that the city is thinking about raising property taxes? Shouldn't like the rise in our property values that we're seeing be enough to supplement that? And that's always the hope. But the city receives we receive funding from a number of different places, not just property tax. But as you all know, inflation has been a big issue the last several years, and there's no guarantee that property taxes rise in any proportion to inflation. So that's why sometimes we have to make adjustments there. It also really depends on how much income we receive through sales tax, which is a lot more volatile and of course is impacted by inflation. So all of those things, all of those kind of stars and planets have to align to try to avoid a property tax. But we're going to do our best to try to do that. Let's see. We're going to continue to work really hard to defend local control in the legislature. That's been a huge topic every year for the past several years. It's going to be another big topic this year. And that includes whether or not or how cities will be able to enact property taxes. Let's see. There have been talks about also taking away the city's ability to regulate our water and our watershed areas. So we want to control that. We want to be able to continue to control our streets and to the Salt Lake City Airport. So those are going to be big high-level issues that we're working on. Another is the proposed shelter. That there will be a new shelter in Rose Park. I'm sure you read about that. It's been covered a lot in the press. It would be a very large shelter. And our concern as a city is that we are already struggling to maintain and service all of the existing shelters that we have in Salt Lake City. If this new shelter is built and they don't add funds for us to be able to do that, then we're going to be starting off in a bad place. And that includes, and that doesn't even address like how we're going to actually build the shelter. So we're working on that. We want to make sure that if we're going to have yet another shelter in Salt Lake City, that we're going to be able to address all of the issues that come with that. Let's see. Fleet block development. So we are also moving forward on developing a fleet block, which is an area or almost an entire city block that's between on 3rd West between 7th and 8th South. So if you're ever on your way down to Target or Lowe's or whatever, and that big empty block is where we're hoping to add mixed use. There could be some living, or some residential units there. We want to have some business, and commercial available there. We want to have some community space there, and then green space sort of at the center. So we're gonna move forward with, more of that planning and visioning this year. And then we also have, some big parks and trails improvements. We're hopefully gonna get 2 trailheads that are gonna be opening. Both of those are in the avenues. Hopefully seeing some updates to the Ensign Peak trailhead as well, though. That's from a CIP project that I talked about a couple of years ago when that was passed. So we're gonna finally start seeing some actual building from that. And then, of course, Warm Springs Park, making sure that, this community's participated in multiple studies for that park. And I just wanna start moving forward on some of those. So we've planned plenty, and it's time to start building. So, those are be my priorities and what I'm predicting for the year, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Yes.
Chris, any thoughts about why the crime rate may have dropped? I have 2 questions, actually.
Sure.
That's the first. Second, it's have we been able to hire?
Yeah. So the questions were, any idea why crime has dropped? And the second question was, have we been able to hire more police officers? And the second question answers the first. Yes, we have been able to hire more police officers. We have a fully staffed police department, for which we haven't had for the last couple of years coming out of 2020. But yeah, we have a fully staffed department now, and that really has contributed a lot. I don't know if you've noticed, I've noticed a lot more police engagement in the downtown area, police just doing more patrols. And that's really helped a lot. But I also want to emphasize that as part of the city's co-responding model, we've also invested in other forms of response from the police department other than sworn officers. We have a civilian response unit that can deal with, very low level complaints. And we've invested a lot in making sure that we have social workers that can go with police officers to certain calls, and help with those situations. We get a lot of calls that are not crimes, but they are emergencies, and the social worker can be really pivotal in those situations.
Good to know.
Yeah, thanks.
Chris,
Yeah.
you mentioned Warm Springs Park development. I'm actually curious, don't know if you know off the top of your head, but what are some of the big items for that?
Yeah, so one is a community garden. Another is whether tennis courts have been out of commission for a long time. Do we resurface those as tennis courts? Do we make a pickleball courts? They're nothing right now, so there's some blank space, so we definitely want to activate that. Updates to the bathroom there. I think that there was some talk at one point about expanding the dog park. But that may or may not happen, and then we want to get new playground equipment. There also is a lot of talk about, because actually Northgate Park, which is, most people don't realize is a different park on the north end of the building, at the Warm Springs building, is where the actual Warm Springs are located. Which is a sacred site to indigenous tribes in the area. So we've been trying to get a lot of input on incorporating some like space that recognizes and kind of honors or celebrates and highlights that as a protected and important space. So that is going to be a component as well. And I think we'll probably combine them into one park. I think we will. It just wouldn't make sense to have them be two. They're literally next to each other. So yeah. Yeah, thanks. Any other questions I can answer? Thank you, I really appreciate it. I have to take my daughter who's to her 18-month appointment today, and she had to get 4 shots, including her flu shot. She's not feeling so great, so I'm gonna take off early tonight to go help take care of her. But I wanted to make sure to be here with all of you. Wish you a happy new year and give you that update. And then I'll look forward to seeing you all in February, if not sooner. Hey,
Chris.
thanks so much. Appreciate it all. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks. Up next is the city liaison, Lucio De Leon. Did I say that correctly? Heard it so many times now.
Leon,
Yeah,
yes.
De Leon. What are some thoughts?
Okay, thanks. Good evening, everyone. My name is Alicia, and I am your community liaison to the mayor's office for District 3. So Mayor Mendenhall, how is this office?
They like
Hello?
Keith Fattens.
You can raise my voice. Hello? Okay, there we go. So Mayor Mendenhall is delivering her city, State of the City address, Tuesday, January 27th at 7 p.m. You can see her speech on YouTube and on Facebook, her Facebook account. Hope to see you online.
It's about Instagram.
No, it's not gonna be featured on Instagram. Maybe just a snippet, maybe like a couple of seconds or something. I'll tell Coms about it.
Yeah.
So in less than 30 days, the Milano Cortina 2026 Olympics and Paralympics games, winter games will begin. And so everybody will be watching the entire world, and we are hosting a watch party at the Civic Center, which is in downtown. The address is right there, it's just right across from the City and County building. So come on down to cheer for Team USA. The live entertainment will start at 5, and you can also visit the link there so you can have more, figure out more information about what's happening that day. But hope to see you there and party. There's food trucks, live entertainment, I think DJs, and it's open to families and friends and neighbors. So the Salt Lake City Police Department is hosting community meetings, open forums on a quarterly basis. It will be hosted on the first Wednesdays of the month of February, May, August, and November. Meetings start at 5:30 p.m. and they are at the Sorensen Center, which is on the corner of 1300 South and 900 West. If you plan on attending, please RSVP. They will ask you 2 questions. How many adults will be attending and how many kids will be attending, so they ensure that they have enough staff for daycare, and also if they have enough food to feed you all. If you have any questions, please contact the outreach team for PD, and you can give them a call as well. That QR code at the corner there will give you more information about those community meetings. I think you can sign up for email notifications or reminders.
What they do there?
Chat. So if you have concerns, if you have recommendations, if you have questions about your area, district, neighborhood, I think Chief Red will be present. I'm not sure at how many, but he'll be present. A team of the outreach team. It'll be PD's social workers team. So, I mean, it's going to be a big team for you to, they'll have resources there. So it's more of a community engagement, checking in, seeing what the community needs or what they're interested in. Things like that. Great question. So the point in time count is a yearly event or a yearly activity that is mandated by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. And it helps them to figure out how to allocate their resources to folks who are experiencing homelessness, particularly here in Utah. The point in time count is a survey in which volunteers go out on 3 particular nights, which is the 29th, the 28th, and the 31st. And the folks are counting those who are experiencing who are sheltered, who are in emergency housing and transitional housing, and unsheltered people experiencing homelessness in every single night, the 29th, the 30th, and the 31st. So there's training involved on January 26th. QR code will take you to more information on what they need in terms of volunteering, and also for you to sign up. They're also accepting donations, and you would have to drop those off by this Friday. So. For the Warm Springs Park and North Gateway Park, the stabilization project was finalized in December. And I wanted to bring you project details in case you are interested in knowing a bit more about Warm Springs. There's the project manager, his email. And I also want to encourage you to sign up for their newsletter, or if you want to get a copy of or project updates on both of those sites. I gave you the steps on how to get there, or you can also go to the link. So basically, if you go to SLC, for example, slc.gov, and you put, there you go, and you put in Warm Springs, I'm sure it will lead you to that page. So there you'll see sign up for updates, and if you go all the way towards the bottom, okay.
Not too bad.
Yeah, there you go. There's the report for, which one's that one? That one's for, yes, for the, I think this one is for the parts. Anyways, I just wanted to show you the page and just to remind you that you can sign up for their updates and also download So this is the page. So if you go further down to this page, there's a link right there and it says the project page. If you click there, they don't give you everything that's going on currently. What's been going on in, last year and what's going to happen this year. Construction is expected to start in summer. And there's not a secure date, but it's around that time. Yep. And the last bit of information is that residents and visitors are invited to experience a symphony of disappearing sounds for the Great Salt Lake. It's a new artwork by the Icelandic Danish artist Oliver Eliasson. So his artwork will be comprised of musical composition and light projection that will be placed at Memory Grove for 10 nights between March 26th to April 4th from 9 to 10. You can follow him or his work on Instagram. You can also sign up for the newsletter, or you can email Andrew Shaw at the Arts Council if you figure out, details on this this experience. So the music for the public artwork uses field recordings of local animals and natural phenomena drawn from existing archives, as well as new recordings made for the project. So the broadcast within the city is these seldom heard sounds make explicit the relationship that connects Salt Lake City to the lake and its surrounding environment. So that's the intent of that piece of art. So you're welcome to go check it out. And here is my contact information. Yes. Yes, it's free. That's a good question. Any questions, concerns, comments for the mayor? You may text, call, email me. Thank you.
Yeah. So Alicia, I do have one, and I may have goaded some people here with it tonight, but that is the Chapel Hill Community Plan update. I was wondering if you had any information about that. If you didn't, that's kind of okay, it's a surprise.
I don't, but I will for the next meeting.
Great.
And, or I can send you an update via email if you want to post it online.
That would be cool too.
Yes, okay.
But while you're all here and looking at this page, I wanted to bring your attention to the survey that the planning department has for our community. And if you click the link, it looks similar to some of the other transportation surveys that we've seen recently, but anyways, help influence what happens. This is a great way to do it. The link is in the email. The link to the page is in the email that you got. So please take the survey.
Yeah, how does this survey differ from those, when UDOT came and did the open house and there was surveys and customer feedback then about this plan?
That's a great question.
I guess Salt Lake, I wonder, working in conjunction with UDOT, or they're kind of both their own survey?
The question was, what's the difference between the UDOT survey and this survey? I do know that this survey is related to the plan for the area, which is kind of a much longer term, like a 15-year, 20-year plan. So sometimes can be on a different time scale. There was a document that's in 2001 that I've read before that, talks about what this community should be. And it was pretty interesting then, but they're updating it. So take the survey. You're here.
Oh, I was.
Do you want to?
Well, so UDOT is obviously a state entity that. UDOT is a state entity that manages like the state-owned roads through this community, but then this is a city-specific document that governs the boundaries of North Point and Capitol Hill. And it's for city planning, that the philosophical guide for how the city should develop the area.
Yeah.
And we'll have an opportunity to talk about this.
The traffic,
Yeah.
Okay, I was.
Yeah, we'll try to talk about it. Yeah. In this a little bit.
Oh, kind of fun. Thank you.
Sorry to introduce.
Oh, that's okay.
I apologize.
I can introduce myself. There's a lot of familiar faces, but for people who I haven't met, my name is Ashley Anderson. I represent you on the Salt Lake City School District's Board of Education. And so for the Capitol Hill boundaries, that includes Washington Elementary, which is just up the street, and West High, which is just down the street. And obviously, the biggest update I have to share with you is that the construction for the new West High has really, commenced. And you'll notice that area, they call it grubbing, I think, when they level the dirt and send everything out. And now that project is going out to bid. So you'll see that the school is beginning to be built soon, but it will be a really long process. There are neighbors who I know have reached out, with concerns about construction or the traffic that's coming onto their street. So I encourage anyone who does have a problem with that construction just to reach out to me directly if you want. My email is just my name, ashley.anderson@slcschools.org. But if you visit the school district website and you click on the bond landing page, the bond construction page will take you to a direct link where you can email staff who may receive your message a little bit faster, because that's who I'll send your message to. So you can also have a direct link that way if you're having issues with construction. I know that many of us are really excited that there will be a new high school for West, where the students here have the same quality of facilities that our neighbors in Davis and Granite have when our kids are traveling for athletics and activities. But it will be a long process, so I encourage you to reach out. Other things that are going on at the school district, we have Science Fair, which is seeking judges for the district fair. So if you're interested, I encourage you to, again, look at the district page and sign up to volunteer, or let me know if you'd like to find a way to volunteer in our schools. We continue to have a lot of success with West High basketball, girls basketball being ranked at the top of the state 5A rankings again this year. We also have had a lot of success in swimming and other activities. Supporting sports throughout the spring is a great way to help public education, because the legislative session sort of looms large for us in public education. We know that the state legislature has asked all government agencies, including our state board of ed, to consider reducing their operational budgets by 5%. That would be a significant reduction to the revenue we receive for essential services for kids. So we're watching that budget process very closely, as well as other legislative updates that are happening. But other than legislative session, things are really positive in what's happening in our public schools. Do you have any questions about what's going on? Yes.
No, can you elaborate on like the volunteering?
Oh yeah, how to volunteer in school. So the question is, can I elaborate on how to volunteer in school? On the district website, there are often posts about how you can get involved. But if you wanted to help, you can email me, and I can also give you my email address after this, and I can kind of point you in the right direction. But for district science fair specifically, it takes place in early February, February 2nd through 5th. And students are judged via Zoom so that they can get enough judges, and students don't need a bus to travel to the district office. And so they're looking for community members who can dedicate about 2 hours in a block to listen to student projects online. And it's super fun. You get, the high school students are splicing DNA in labs, and the elementary school students are trying to figure out if cats are left or right paw. It's like a big range of projects, and they're super fun to listen to. So if you are interested, you can find more information on the district website, but you can also send me a message, and I can point you in the right direction.
Thank you. And
Yeah.
would that be during business hours?
It is during business hours, so if people can't do it, there are often other ways to volunteer in schools, and I really encourage people, if they're interested in that, a quick thing to do is reach out directly to a school's principal or to me with a way that you might want to be interested in helping. Because it takes a village, as the saying goes. Thank you for asking. Any other questions about what's going on? Yeah.
So, with the state board suggested cuts, one of the programs that they're talking about cutting is the DLI program. Is there anything that like the school district is able to do to advocate for?
Yeah, so what we would ask you to advocate for as well is what's called the flexible allocation. So one thing that the legislature did in the last session, which was really difficult, or 2 sessions ago for our district, was they rolled a bunch of expenses into something called the flexible allocation. And what that means is in the budget, I'll try to explain this as succinctly as I can. In the budget, there used to be a line item for DLI, a line item for Beverly Taylor Sorensen Arts, a line item for gang prevention. And they took all that money and rolled it into a lump sum and distributed it equally to districts based on the average salary. What that did for our district was reduce the overall amount we receive for DLI, the overall amount we receive for Beverly Taylor Sorensen Arts, and the overall amount we receive for gang prevention and a bunch of other services, because we pay teachers higher than the state average. So essentially, we were punished for paying teachers a good wage by having our amount of funding we receive reduced. The last time the legislature made a big roll on into the flexible allocation, that was the first thing they tried to cut in a budget cycle. So the thing you'd want to advocate for, if you want to advocate for DLI, which for those who are not familiar with all the education acronyms, is dual language immersion. So our students who go learn half a day in one language and half a day in another language, you would want to say we need to preserve the flexible allocation, which is what funds dual language immersion. And we certainly advocate for those things. School board members at districts across the state meet on Fridays during the legislative session in what's called the Joint Legislative Committee. And we give advice through the School Boards Association and the Superintendents Association on the bills we support or oppose. Obviously, our voice is somewhat diminished in a legislature that is a supermajority and makes the decisions largely that it wants to make. But the thing you would advocate for, and that we will also be advocating for, is that flexible allocation, which is how DLI is funded. We will be probably in a better position than some of our neighboring districts for dual language immersion, because we have relatively fewer schools running those programs than other districts do. And so I wouldn't expect to see large changes, but it's important to know that that is something you're looking for. Yeah.
Yeah, I would recommend you advocate for it, like, if it's like, writing your congressman type thing, or?
Yeah, so what's happening at the state legislature, you can write to our representatives. And for this boundary, I think most, if not all of us, are represented by Senator Todd Weiler, who I point this direction because he lives in Davis County. And we're represented by Jen Daly Provo, who often comes to these meetings. So those are two people who you'd want to reach out to. But the committee that makes this determination is called the Public Education's Appropriations Committee. So if you were to go on the legislative website and look up the Public Education Appropriations Committee, that's where you might send an email that says, hey, I want to make sure that you are supporting, keeping the flexible allocation for our public school districts, or just whatever you can name whatever program you want. That's just where DLI specifically is.
Why are we represented by someone in Davis?
That is a great question that I believe the courts are working on answering for us. I think that what a lot of us, my state school board member now is in Davis County, but I have a very small district precinct and there are 3 state school board members in it. So our precincts are just, not all aligned, as we know. So, but a good question for us all to mull over in the long winter nights. Any other questions about what's going on in public school? I know that's a little bit of a downer to end on with funding, but we really do a lot of awesome things, I think. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I put your contact information up behind you.
Oh, awesome.
Yes, you.
Thank you.
Fun fact, I graduated from West High School in 2010. Okay, so we have Jennifer Daly Pro hopefully coming to this meeting. She's not here yet, but it's kind of a tenuous time situation. So Cassie, if she does come during her presentation, we'll relinquish time to her. Okay. Up next is Cassie Powers, who is a board member, and she's going to be presenting on asset-based community development. That's all. I will present it somehow. Here's this. Oh, there's a big button. Okay, do the button. His Zoom is doing too.
All right, I'm gonna pull up notes here too, but it's not coming up on the presentation there. All right, hi everyone. That's the wrong date on here, but other than that, this should be accurate. So I'm Cassie Power, and I am talking to you tonight about asset-based community development. And maybe we can go to the next slide. I'm just going to give you a quick overview of who I am, so you know I am talking to you about this. The first thing that you might want to know about me is that I'm your neighbor. So I live here in Cap Hill, and I'm also serving on the board. And then my professional background, I am a social psychologist, and I have a joint PhD in social psychology and gender studies. And throughout my career, I've worked on community engagement. And I'm also a small business owner where I work on community engagement and helping people connect with each other more meaningfully. So I'm presenting on this because I care about it, is the short story there. Okay, but why am I presenting on it at this meeting? Well, the reason is because our mission, you heard it at the beginning of the meeting, right? Is that we're supposed to be improving the overall quality of life in our neighborhood. And so asset-based community development, also conveniently known as ABCD, is one strategy that we could use if we decided. So this isn't something that we as a board have decided to do, but if people were interested, this is one strategy that we could use to meet our mission. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what asset-based community development is, so that we as a group can decide if this is something we'd be interested in doing together. Okay, so asset-based community development is a method for sustainable community development that utilizes and leverages existing strengths within a community. So this is important. So the focus on asset-based community development is on community strengths, not on the problems. So often in community development, we're thinking about what's wrong, what do we need to fix, and then fixing it. So ABCD just has a slightly different focus, and the focus is on finding the strengths and then leveraging those strengths as a way of improving the community that we all live in. So yeah. So there's a process for asset-based community development. It's kind of a 3-stage process. They can overlap and you can move back and forth between them. But just for the sake of ease, I'll kind of talk about them in order. So the first part of the process is a discovery process, which I think is super fun. So what you're trying to do is discover all the hidden assets that are in your neighborhood. And so there are different strategies, and I'll talk about that, about how you can go about this discovery process. But really the first thing you're wanting to do is discover what's out there. And then you start to, once you start to know what those assets are that are in the neighborhood, then you're wanting to connect those assets in order to broaden the circles of participation. So the idea of asset-based community development is we want more people involved, right? If we have more people involved, we're going to be a more thriving community. And so then you deepen those connections. And then the last thing is you mobilize. So you mobilize those connections that you've developed to actually meet your neighborhood goals. So that's the broad overview. I'll talk a little bit more specifically about each of those pieces. Okay, this slide is kind of packed full of information. When you're in the discovery process, you're trying to discover lots of things about your neighborhood. And so you're wanting to think about what's there that we don't know about. And the way that you can think about assets is pretty broad. So one asset in your neighborhood are just the people who are there, right? And there's all sorts of things that people in our neighborhood know, right? And do that we don't know about. So maybe I mentioned this before at our board meeting, but like maybe you have a neighbor who has a great skill at baking sourdough bread. And I know that that was kind of a COVID thing, but you know, you might have a baker in your neighborhood and that's an asset that is in your neighborhood that you may not know about because mostly it's happening in their home behind closed doors. But our neighbors are assets. And so we're trying to discover what our neighbors know and what it is that they might be able to offer to our neighborhood. So that's the first kind of thing you're discovering is you're actually just talking to people to find out what they know and what they can offer. Then there's association. So of course, we are an association here, a neighborhood association. Done.
Pew, 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 pew.
Done.
Try that one.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So then association. So according to asset-based community development, associations can be formal or informal. So the way you define an association is it's just a group of people who get together to do something and they do it without pay. So that's an association. So we're a formal association of our neighborhood, but another association might be the people who meet up at 6 o'clock at the dog park at Warm Springs. That would be another association of people because they're getting together for a common purpose. They're not getting paid to do so, right? So you start to find out, well, what are the associations that are in our neighborhood? Who's getting together for book clubs? Who's getting together in knitting circles? Who's getting together to talk politics? What are the associations? Then the next level are institutions. Now, the way you distinguish an institution from an association is that institutions are people who gather to do something, but they do it for pay, right? So we have some amazing institutions that we've heard about so far tonight, right? So schools might be an institution, as well as I had one in my head that just left my head. Oh, the Film Society, right? That's another another institution in our community. So you're trying to discover what are all the institutions that are in your community. And then the next is places. Those places can be natural places or built places. So again, an example would be Warm Springs, would be a place that's an asset in our neighborhood. But I gave this as an example before when I talked to our board as well. One of my friends went to a rally at the Capitol, and when she was going, it was one of the bigger ones, and so there was no parking. Someone who lived in our neighborhood flagged her down and asked her if she was going to the rally. She said yes, and they said, you can park in our driveway. So that becomes a place that is an asset. Our driveways can be assets, right? So places as assets can be something like Warm Springs, it can be a driveway, or it might be a building, right? So there can be all sorts of places. The library is, of course, one of our assets. And then exchange is another community asset. So it can be formal exchange. So we might talk about exchanging money in our small businesses, right? That would be one form of exchange that can be an asset in our community. We can shop local, right? But those exchanges can also be less formal. So anyone who knows me knows I get super excited about the idea of, although I've yet to actually implement something like this, but I love the idea of thinking about exchanges that aren't just based on money. So there are communities that have created time banks. So you might put an hour of work into the time bank for your neighbor. So you might, if you know how to cut trees, then you can help someone trim their tree at the right time of year so that it'll thrive, right? And then you've invested an hour into the time bank, and then you get to get an hour back out, right? So exchanges don't just have to be monetary. They're just about all the things that we can exchange together that can be resources. So you can do a thing where you're exchanging, you can trade clothes, right? So it's about taking things that we might normally take outside of the neighborhood and see them as assets that we can use in our neighborhood together. And then the last one is culture. So this might include history, it might include present day communities. So the diversity of our community makes us stronger. And so recognizing what all of those pieces are that are in all those different cultural pieces in our neighborhood, they're also an asset. So the discovery process, you're really just trying to discover all those assets in all of those different areas. So you can imagine it can be a really fun discovery process. Okay. So tools for discovery. One thing is you just start to ask people, you talk to your neighbors, you stand outside the library, right? So one tool of discovery is just talking to people. And I can talk more about, so you can ask people about gifts of head, that would be like knowledge sources, gift of heart. So what is it that people care about? Gift of hands are things that people can do. And then gifts of conscience, there might be someone who's really good about thinking about equity and how we can develop equity in our neighborhood. So that would be a gift of conscience. So you're really looking for gifts from people in a wide range of areas. And then another tool is literally just walking the neighborhood, right? Like we notice and we learn about our neighborhood differently when we walk through it than when we drive through it. Or maybe we bike the neighborhood. But part of that discovery process is literally getting out into the neighborhood and getting out there and seeing, like, I'm so curious about the Bliss Foundation for the Arts or something is right across from the Film Society. But so you actually start to see things, and then you can go and you can look it up and try and get more information. Okay, so those are some of the tools for discovery. So then that second stage was about connecting, trying to broaden participation. So the first thing that you do here is you really try to find and nurture the connectors. So probably for all of us, wherever we live, you probably know someone in your neighborhood who knows most of the people in the neighborhood, or knows more of the people in the neighborhood than most people, right? So we want to identify who those people are and then nurture them and help them utilize their gifts to engage in that process. And then the other perspective of asset-based community development, the assumption is people want to be asked to help, right? So often we're reluctant to ask people to help. We don't want to be a burden, but the assumption of asset-based community development is that people are actually waiting to be asked to help, particularly to offer their gifts, because we all like to be part of something bigger than ourselves. And so some of what you're doing there is you're really becoming more invitational, and you're asking people, what do you have to offer? And you're inviting them to offer it. And in doing that, they get to be part of this something bigger than just what's happening in their home and their everyday life. And then you're connecting neighbors who have capacities with neighbors who need them, right? So those connectors know that so-and-so down the street needs help with shoveling, for instance. That maybe it's not safe for that person, maybe they have some mobility issues and they need some help with shoveling. But we also know that one of the gifts that they have to offer is, like, they're really good with kids. So maybe they could support someone who needs someone to watch their kid for an hour because they ran into traffic on their way home, right? So you start to connect the people who have something to give with the people who need the thing to be given. And then the other thing you do is you connect neighbors with shared interests so that you're starting to build that associational life, because then you're getting a neighborhood where people know each other. People know what's going on in each other's lives. They are invested in each other, right? So you start connecting people with shared interests. So you say, oh, I know that there is this group of people who get together and knit. And I know that there's this person who loves knitting who's doing it alone. So I'm going to connect them so that they can start to do that together, right? So that's the connection phase of ABCD. And then the next one is then you mobilize. So then once you've deepened this associational life, you've connected people, then you start to have these community themed responses to neighborhood goals. Where is it that we want to get as a neighborhood, and how do we use all these assets, including all these connections that we have with each other, to meet those goals? And then at this point, it's helpful to have an association of associations. So it's like a big umbrella group that kind of knows what all the other associations or groups of people are doing or care about. And then you create a neighborhood vision. So you come together and you say, given all these strengths and resources, what is it that we want to be, and how is it that we want to get there? And that's kind of your mobilization process. Okay, so a couple resources. So putting this together, I drew a lot from this book. It's called The Connected Community, Discovering the Health, Wealth, and Power of Neighborhoods. If you want to know about that, you can come take a picture of my book before you go. And then I've also included up there, the ABCD Institute has a website with a lot of resources. So that's the main page, but they have a resources page on there. So you're gonna get lots of information about ABCD, easily accessible if you have internet connection or you come use one of the computers here at the library. So I'm gonna leave you with that. That's asset-based community development. If you're interested, come talk to me before you leave tonight. And the other thing is you don't even have to be interested in this. Come talk to me anyway if I don't know you. I want to know you. So again, I'm Cassie Power and I'll hope to chat with you.
Thank you so much. And we're gonna basically put that to work. And I think Janine has a vision for how this is gonna happen, so she's going to explain.
So, and can we go back to
Yep.
the slide? Here, I'll tell you when to. Yep, right there. Yep, the Discover. Okay, so going back to this Discover side, the neighborhood building blocks, all that is hidden but beyond your front door, neighbors, associations, institutions, places, exchange, and culture. So what we're going to do now, we're going to have an interactive small group ideation session. And we are going to be by our different committees. So our governance committee will be over here. I've also paired up community engagement, even though our chair for community engagement isn't here tonight, along a few of the tables. So if our governance committee chair will stand over here, and then you can bring your chair over if that's the committee that you want to go to. So those who are interested in governance can come over here. Sam, will you explain what governance is?
Governance is just here to grease the wheels, make sure that we're doing things in ways that involve a community, that we're being principled and democratic and deliberative, engaging the community. So making the structures that help facilitate all the wonderful work that we actually want to get done.
And also on these small papers that you should all have, it tells you how you can get involved with Capitol Hill Neighborhood Council. It will also have kind of a definition of what the committees do. So governance is your thing. Over here is where you'll gather. If communications or community engagement is your thing, the communications table is over here. If finance and development or events is of interest to you, then I'll kind of spread it out. So this one has finance and development plus another community engagement. This one has events. And then, and our most popular, our biggest event of the year is Marmalade Jam Fest, but we also do a July 4th breakfast at Warm Springs Park. And then if you're interested in environment or transportation infrastructure and planning, then you're going to come over to this table. Now, what you're going to do is, and also if you're a committee chair, you'll head over to that table. So Annie, you'll head over to the events table. Samuel, too, you'll come over here to the transportation infrastructure and planning. Jonathan Bruns will come over to environment, and so on and so forth. So, and interns, you have your assignments, so you can head to your tables right now. But what you're going to want to do at those tables is there are sticky notes that you can write on. As far as if you what are the community assets that you know of in our Capitol Hill Neighborhood Council area? If you don't know what neighborhoods are in our area, there's a map over there at that table. But what are the community assets in terms of individual neighbors or associations, organizations, institutions? It might be Washington Elementary or West High School, the Utah Film Center, other places, Warm Springs Park, exchange and culture. So if you have ideas of what are our community assets that, and you may be one of those community assets who might like to share ideas in a committee meeting. So what I'd like you to do is choose an area of interest to you. This doesn't mean that you're committing to serve on the committee. So we're not going to hold you to, hey, you came on our January meeting to this table, you're now on the committee. But what area interests you, or do you have talents to offer, talents or skills, or ideas about what assets are in our community? Okay, so that's traffic infrastructure and transportation infrastructure and planning with Samuel, environment with Jonathan, events with Annie. Which one is back? Community engagement and finance are back at this table. This table is communications and community engagement, and this table is governance and community engagement. So everyone disperse. And if you have your own pen, if you brought along your own pen, that's helpful, but we also have markers at every table.
We are saying in a post-it note, oh, there's this location that's for Oh, that, okay, sorry.
Hey everyone, sorry. We actually need to call you back for one last guest speaker, and then after she gives her remarks, then we'll disperse out to small groups. So we are so fortunate tonight to be able to have our state legislator, our representative, Jennifer Daly Provo, here with us tonight. And legislative session just started on Tuesday, so I'm sure she has a lot to share with us already. Day 2. So here we go.
Thank you, Janine. Hi, everybody. I'm Jen. I'm sorry I'm late. It's been a tough day 40 of session here on day 2. So thank you. Let me just take a moment and say thank you for being worth fighting for. Thank you for being the community that I am so privileged to serve. Serving the Utah legislature is never an easy job in political times such as these. It's especially a challenging place to be sometimes, but I do love the policy work, and I am eager to give you a quick update on the couple of things that have come to light in the last 48 hours since we started session yesterday morning. Wow. That I'd like you to be aware of, and then I'll be back in February as well with some updates, and I'm sure that the landscape's going to change pretty fundamentally. So one of the biggest things that I think people need to be aware of that doesn't hit the highlights in the press as much is the budget crisis that we're in, which seems really weird because we hear all the time about Utah being, the economy being so good, and we're the best managed state, and isn't that wonderful, yada, yada, yada. But what we're facing right now is the confluence of a couple of things. First of all, Utah State Legislature has cut income taxes every year for the last 5 years to the tune of about $1 billion in decreased revenue to the state. Now, of course, you can make the argument that that's $1 billion more into the economy, and that's great. That's not a bad thing. But the degree to which individual families are, whose their standard of living is improved by the, those incremental things is not as robust as I believe it should be, because the vast majority of those tax cuts actually flow to corporations and businesses in the state of Utah. But what's happening is that we've cut taxes so much that we're now losing the ability to have resilience to some of the great budgetary fluctuations that are now coming out of the federal administration because of so many changes and the federal debt crisis that we're facing and decisions that have been being made in the executive branch. So when HR 1 passed in July, we changed the standard minimum deduction, and that led to a $130 million loss in income tax in the state of Utah through no action by the state legislature. So we're trying to figure out how to manage that income loss, that's education funding. At the same time, many of my colleagues are pushing for a 6th consecutive year of a cut in the income tax, but also at the same time, legislative leadership has asked all of our budget committees to cut our independent committees by 5%, which 5% doesn't seem like a lot until you look at just social services appropriations budget committee that I sit on, $7 billion to fund the state's most vulnerable human beings. That's $350 million that we've been told we have to try to free up so that the legislature can find other things to spend that money on. So these are some of the arguments that I'm having with my colleagues on the Hill on behalf of our community. I know it's doom and gloom. It's not good. It's not a great situation, but I don't want you to be ignorant of it, because this is really, really important. The budgetary things that we do affect the people in our state to a huge degree, unmeasurable degrees. And so I do lead the budget negotiations and debates for the House Democratic Caucus. And so I am having those conversations all day, every day, and I will keep fighting for that, and I will keep you posted. I'm hoping that these budget cut recommendations, this 5% cut, don't actually lead to cuts, that it's just an exercise so that we can all be really grateful for the money that they're going to let us keep. But they haven't killed the optimist in me yet, so I keep coming back every day because I get to represent this amazing community. Some legislative issues that you've probably heard of that I know have raised some concern: Harvey Milk, political stunt, horrible bill. I think we're going to kill it. If we don't, we'll fix it. But I wish that was the worst thing that my colleague is doing at the legislature. If it was only that, I would sleep better at night. Representative Lee has a couple of really, really bad bills that would basically codify outright discrimination, and they're really, really bad. And HB 138 is probably one of the scariest bills I've ever seen it's my 8th session. It's one of the worst that I've seen. And so if you are going to rally your community members across the state to call their representatives, HB 138 is one that we really need to gather around to fight against. There was a bill that passed out of government operations today that as part of election laws that raises a lot of concerns. It does essentially create different classes of voters in the state of Utah, targets immigrant populations, disenfranchises people with disabilities. I think that is unconstitutional. So we may have to take that fight to the judiciary, but of course the legislature's got its sights set on our judiciary right now. There's a bill to add 2 Supreme Court justices to our Supreme Court, stacking the courts because of displeasure over some of the decisions that were made, ironically, at the district court, not the Supreme Court. Chief Justice spoke to our body yesterday and said, great, yes, we need new judges, just not on the Supreme Court. We need judges in our district courts because our courts are backed up and people don't have access to justice. So if you'd like to fund some judges, we've got a couple of courts that we would really love for you to help on. And so there's some tense discussions going on there, but know that I'll be fighting against the efforts to stack courts and make sure that we have a judiciary that's responsible to our communities. a couple of highlights. I am happy to take questions. I know it's late in the day and I know you were just doing some breakouts when I zipped in. So thank you for your patience with me and I apologize for being here so late. And thank you again for the privilege of representing you. Do you guys have any questions? HB 138 is Trevor Lee's bill that basically eliminates any rights and protections that are currently afforded in our laws for LGBTQ community, including employment protections, and could very well lead to, I had an analyst do a run through of it.
On how the, how it would be interpreted, we could have as many as 11,000 public.
Thank you. We could have as many as 11,000 current public employees that would no longer qualify to do the jobs that they're currently doing. Because, you know, there are tens of thousands of people lining up to do public service jobs right now. These are some of the hardest jobs that exist in the state. So we're going to do our best to protect them. Great question. Thank you. We'll see you in February. My contact information is on the CHMC website. It's also on the legislative website. My cell phone and email are there. Please contact me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're feel free to break out again.
So we're going to use the last 10 to 15 minutes of our meeting to go to the different tables by committee. This is for you to offer ideas, like if you have ideas for our events for Marmalade Jam Fest or the 4th of July breakfast, if there's an event that you want our neighborhood to start up or to bring back that was here before at another time, you can give those ideas there. If you have
HB 183, not 130.
Oh, HB 183 is the one that we were talking about. Okay. No, that's okay. Thank you. If you have questions or concerns or ideas for transportation, infrastructure, or planning, or environment within our neighborhoods, then you'll want to come over to this table. Let's say you have a background in fundraising development, then head on over back to that table. So yeah, and if you want to stop at a few tables, you can as well. Okay, so that's how we're going to use our last 10 to 15 minutes. Thank you for being at our meeting.
And if you have any questions or you need to be directed, come talk to one of the people that there would be. I think it's so loud. Freaking loud.
Good.